real honest reviews. Really, this stuff is really awesome. Throw this in the garbage. Oh, super versatile and one of my favorite trucks of all time.
Just in case you're wondering, I am driving pretty badly on purpose.
Yeah, it just bends in half. It's garbage. Come on, wouldn't you trust this face?
Alright, what's up everyone? Adam Van Ord here, and I am going to do a real, honest review on the Redcat Gen 8. Now, I was lucky enough to snag one of the original Redcat Gen 8s, the first ones, the first pre-order, if you will, specifically because Ryan was willing to allow me to snag his own personal one. So, in regards to that, I am doing a real honest review for Ryan to talk about exactly what's going on. If you don't know who I am, I'm Adam Van Ord. I run Van Ord Customs. I'm a long-time team driver for RC Addict. Additionally, I did the real honest review with Ryan on the RC four-wheel drive Hero, and that was super fun, so I think you will probably see me pop up a little bit more here and there talking about some of these new trucks that come out and specifically reviewing them, discussing what's going on, and so on and so forth. If you want to check out anything that I do, feel free to jump on over to the Van Ord Customs channel. I do live at 9:45 interviews with people all over the RC hobby and specifically inside of the scale scene. So either way, let's jump into the review here and talk a little bit about this Redcat Gen 8. So, some of the things that I really like about this truck, before you ever put it on the ground and run it, and yes, because you can see that the wheels are dirty, I have had it on the ground and I ran it. In fact, I ran it literally right out of the box and into a comp course and ran a box stock class at a scale comp last weekend. And so, as a result, I have some real life, right out of the box, pros and cons about this truck that I like, and I'll dive into those in a second. But first, let's talk about the overall aesthetics of the truck. I really like the overall aesthetics of this truck. I think Redcat has been listening, they were paying attention to what's going on, and they're paying attention to the scale market. I like that they licensed a Scout body. We have tons of Jeeps, we have tons of other stuff. We don't have a lot of Scouts, and so a Scout is a nice addition to what is going on inside of the hobby in general. This body in particular, if you are going to compete with it, is quite large and boxy. Therefore, tagging some gates up here in the back and so on and so forth, it's probably not the best choice to do competition style rock crawling. However, if you are going to compete, more than likely, you're going to change the body anyway to conform to the rules that are at hand. So, not a bad competitor. In fact, I did quite well with it. However, if you're going to compete, that is one of the things that I would say. Next, let's talk about the plastic features that Redcat added to this truck. I mean, they went out of their way to do things like add scale mirrors. I like that the mirrors flip back and forth. If you've ever put mirrors on a scale truck before that didn't have a hinge point, you would know that you lose them very quickly. Additionally, fender flares. I like the fender flares. They're a nice addition. Lots of people have talked about this little doohickey right here, how it doesn't kind of round out the whole fender, and have said that they don't really like it. I think it kind of gets lost in the black coloring, and unless you are up close, you don't really see it. Some solid plastic bumpers, big old stock plastic bumpers like you would expect to see in most ready-to-run trucks. I really like the addition of the D-rings. I think that that's kind of an extra mile type of step. It looks really good. The scale hitch being in here as well is another nice add-on. In fact, it comes out with this pin right here, and then you could put like an actual hitch. Ooh, I haven't had that out yet. It has a hinge pin just like a hitch pin, just like a regular one-to-one rig. So you pull out your hitch pin, and then you can pull out your hitch. And so what that allows you to do is you can put a real like scale hitch in there and start pulling your trailer right away, which is kind of cool. I see a lot of people run trailers. It's not really my thing, but to each their own, and that's cool and all. One of the key things of the front of this truck that I really like is the grill. I like that Redcat took the time and effort to make a nice plastic insert grill. With all the 3D printing and so on that we have going on in the market today, a Lexan body with just a piece of sticker there really doesn't kind of cut it anymore. A lot of the Lexan bodies are coming out with a nice plastic grill, and that is an important feature that really sets off the scale details of the truck. Lastly, if I'm just looking at the outside of it, it's got some nice beadlock wheels. They are plastic with a metal outer ring. They have a hubcap in the center that goes over the hub, which makes for an add-on to that whole scale look. It's kind of one of the giveaways, one of the tells, if you will, that there's a it's a fake truck, a 1/10 size truck and not a 1-to-1 when you see the wheel nut in the picture. Redcat's taking care of that a little bit. Additionally, they license these Interco Super Swampers. They're the same tire that is on the Redcat Gen 7. I personally am lucky enough to work with 12 of those through the local high school club that I do, thanks to Ryan and Crawlers for Kids and their generous donation. So these tires work well. The foams are different in the Gen 7. The foams are like a closed cell, just standard foam. Inside of these we have a memory foam. The memory foam appears to be a little on the stiff side. A lot of people are electing to change them out. I wasn't hurting for any grip, but I also wasn't like thriving on it either. So I think that some tire time, some break-in time on the tires, and additionally maybe a foam switch could really waken up this truck and allow it to perform a little better out on the trail. Lastly but not least is how Redcat decided to tuck the body into the slider right here. And so as you can see, the slider's there and then the body tucks in. That does a couple of different things. One, it keeps your body from catching on rocks and the such and tearing up the Lexan down here on the bottom. The other thing it does is really create a nice uniform look. The look of this truck with the slider tucked right up over top of the body line there really does a good job. I, for one, like the graphics. I think they are spot on for the vintage of the truck. I do wish Redcat would have left the windows clear. It is one of the only negatives in the outside appearance of this truck. The lack of clear windows means that for what a lot of people like to do in the scale aspect of the hobby, which is add an interior, a bunch of extra details that kind of go that extra mile, blacked out windows make it a little more difficult. Now I've seen people clear them. They've taken and sanded off the paint and so on and so forth, and that has been a really good approach. However, not necessarily a perfect one, and so clear windows would have been nice, but it's not a deal breaker. It does make it so that you don't have to build an interior to make it look like it's scale, and so I think that that may also help some of the people who are just joining us inside of the hobby. Alright, let's take the body off, have a look at the underside of this truck. One of the cool, unique things that you don't often see inside of what we've got going on with most ready-to-runs right now is that Redcat elected for Velcro to hold the body on. Now, Velcro is a great way to hold your body on. I've done it for years on comp trucks, and there is a positive and a negative side to Velcro. The positive side is there are no body pins anywhere. The top of this body looks flawless. That makes for a much, much better photo. However, the problem is that the Velcro tends to either wear out or it won't stick appropriately. And I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera, but this is the piece of Velcro. Whoops, it's actually coming off of both sides. This is the piece of Velcro that's supposed to be attached to the fender of the truck. And we ran into this issue when we were at the comp. That Velcro that was supposed to be attached to the fender of the truck came off the fender of the truck because it wasn't sticky enough and stayed attached to the body. Not a hard fix, not a big qualm at all, just one of those little details that you as the consumer should be looking at when you go to purchase this truck. Redcat using this setup to mount the body is awesome. The rigidity that is provided by this piece that goes across the back here attached to the inner fenders really makes it so that the body doesn't feel weak and soft like a Lexan body. It has a hard body feel when you hold it in your hands. Additionally, the tie-in of the inner fenders from the body and the chassis itself is a great addition to the scale aspect of the truck. One that really makes things look a lot nicer. I, for one, enjoy having inner fenders on trucks because you don't see wires or any of that stuff. So Redcat took that idea of those inner fenders and really kind of ran with it and did a really good job. Now, unlike the Gen 7, this time with the Gen 8, Redcat elected for a motor forward mount, then dumping it into a transfer case on down to some portal axles. So that's kind of really with the modern times there. Comp trucks or a lot of the other manufacturers even are electing for a motor forward setup, transfer case, and then lately it's been the portal axles. So the TRX4 has portals, and that's probably one of the biggest competitors with what we've got going on here with the Gen 8. Now, the Gen 8 and the TRX4 Sport are relatively close in the same ballpark as far as the dollar figure goes. And so these are kind of direct competitors as trucks. I've had the pleasure of driving the Gen 8, I've had the pleasure of driving the TRX4, I've driven most of the scale trucks on the market right now, and I can tell you that this truck holds up very well next to the TRX4. Let's kind of dig into what we're offering here underneath of the body itself. We have a HexFly speed control, which I've heard is a rebranded speed control just like the Axial AE5. Someone I'm sure can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. HexFly Servo up here that is red. It is a chassis mounted servo and as a result you acquire a little bit of bump steer as you cycle through the suspension. Now I've heard of a lot of people being very concerned about the suspension cycling and the bump steer. I'm here to tell you that in the crawling world, we are going so slow that the bump steer does not really affect a whole lot of what's going on. Now, I'm sure someone can argue that, and if you want to argue it again, hit me up in the comments. That's just fine. I have no problem backing my claims there, but I've never once had bump steer cause me to lose a competition or not be able to drive a truck in a competitive manner. Now, let's take a look at another cool feature that Redcat's got going on here. They have this receiver box, and in the receiver box is the receiver. However, on the outside of that receiver box, you have plug and play ports for your servo and for your speed control. That allows you to have much easier access to plugging in your servo and your speed control. I kind of like that that's how Redcat did things. It should make it a little easier to maintain what's going on and to replace parts as you either upgrade or things break. Now, I say break because that's what happens to RC trucks. I don't say break because I think this truck is going to break. Seems very solid and durable, and I think that it's going to do quite well. Let's look at some of the other features that are going on. The sliders are nice and big. There's a nice big footprint there where you can kind of store some things up in there if you need to. Huge area for a battery tray. You're going to be able to run any battery you could possibly think of. Let's talk about some of the other features that it has going on. Metal shocks, they're great. They work quite well. They're balanced very well for the truck. One of the things that I really liked over this truck over the TRX4 Defender is that the Defender, although having that big boxy body very much like the International Scout here, the Defender felt very top heavy and floppy for a lack of better terms. So the Defender always felt like it was squatting down on the back corners and very soft suspension. This truck feels tuned very appropriately for the weight that it carries in its stock form. And I was very impressed with how it did. Never once when I drove it in the competition did I feel that it was going to just tip over, or that it had a weird tipping point, or any kind of funky stuff going on. It was very predictable and reliable, and I enjoyed that about this truck in particular. Next, let's talk about the beefiness of the shock towers. The shock towers are super thick, very beefy. There is no flex there that I can find, and I think that that's a positive thing. A lot of times in the scale trucks that we've come across in the past, shock towers have been a flimsy area. There's been some flex going on and things of that nature, and as a result, they tend to wear over time. This truck is built very, very solidly. Now, I have not been inside of the portals at all, inside of the portal gears or any of that. I've seen online that they come and many people were needing to grease them. That is not a huge undertaking. It's not a big task. In fact, we will definitely be checking ours to make sure that those portal gears are greased and in good condition. In fact, I will probably also be popping off the front plate here very quickly, and on the diff cover there, and just throwing a little grease in there as well. In regards to grease, a little bit goes a long ways. You just need a little dab of Cal RC Utter Butter up in there and let it do its thing. It should be able to do anything you need it to do. Another point that is important to talk about is that this truck actually has a metal servo arm. Now, it is not aluminum, it is not solid steel, it is like a pot metal material, which means that durability may not be absolutely phenomenal. However, it should still be way more durable than a plastic servo arm, and that's great news. All aluminum links all around proved to be very solid in this application. I think that there will be no need to worry about any of that. However, RC Addict and D-Links came out with some brass links to add a little bit more weight down low and a little bit more rigidity as well. They're very thick and stable, and they do a great job to make those modifications. Now, let's talk briefly about this skid plate underneath here. I'm not sure how well you can see it on the camera, but there is a little bit of a raised position or a lowered position if the truck is sitting upright. And that lowered position allows for a possible place to hang up. And I can tell you from running it in the comp setting that I never once hung up. I'm not a big portal person. I've not driven many trucks with portals. And as a result, I can tell you that it was very nice to have that extra added clearance. I hung up on very, very few obstacles, and overall I was incredibly impressed with this truck. I mean, just from looking at the bottom of it, you can see my father and I drove this truck in the same competition, which means we had 6 runs, and they weren't the easiest of the easy courses by any stretch of the imagination, and underneath there's almost no wear and tear. Put a regular stock old SCX-10 out there, and you'd have a bunch of wear and tear on the axle housings, a bunch of wear and tear on the skid, and possibly the frame rails, and so that added addition of those portals really makes a big difference. Now, that pretty much covers the truck as a whole. It's fairly solid, ready to run rig at a great price point of $300. I can't say enough good things. I think it is very solid. It is a very, very well-built, ready-to-run truck at an affordable price. That's my true, honest review, especially after having driven the Gen 7. The Gen 7 is a nice truck. It is very cheap, but it was also made kind of cheaply. This is not made cheaply, and it does a very good job. I really, genuinely like it. let's compare it to a couple of other trucks that are on the market that I also like. So if you're talking about an SCX-10 I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of comparison. You have the portal axles on this, and it does a good job there. You also have a complete clean divorced transfer case inside of here, which is real cool. And it's kind of an apples and oranges comparison. If you want to compare it to the closest thing you can, it'd be a TRX4 Sport for the money. The Sport is approximately $50 more. I'm sure someone will correct that down in the comments. And the Sport does a phenomenal job. It does a great comparison to this truck, and this truck held its own against it without any issues whatsoever. I genuinely like this truck. I would personally buy one. In fact, this is my father's. More than likely, we're going to be getting another one in our camp here at the Van Ord Customs area, and I genuinely think that it will be something that I will probably build a comp platform off of in the future, if for nothing else than to just try out the Redcat stuff. Okay, so let's give a little backstory about how I tested this truck to see if I really like it. Last weekend there was a competition at the Spirit Control Hobbies at the Oak Hill Scale Trails, and I took this box stock truck to run in the box stock class. Both my father and I ran it in the box stock class and took it right out of the box, popped a 3-cell battery in there, plugged it in with the provided Dean's plug. Didn't have to do any settings, any trim, anything with the radio. No adjustments needed whatsoever. Drove it right out of the box onto the course and did very well. The first course I drove, I cleaned with 0 points, and then subsequently fell flat on my face, got a bunch of points on the second course, and the third course I got 1 point. So this truck is a very solid performer out of the box. It does a good job. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. It has enough wheel speed to do donuts, and it's slow enough to creep with the best of them. It is a good truck for the money, and if I was you, I would buy one and check it out.